Hello everyone, today I will introduce to you the movie The Mummy of Princess of Egypt. This girl is preparing to make some kind of covenant with the god Seth. When she takes hold of the dagger containing Seth's power, her body feels pain. The marks of Seth symbolically begin to appear all over her body. Her eyes also turn from 2 pupils to 4. At this point, she has obtained Seth's power. What she does is take the life of her father, then go to her brother's room to end his little life. All because of the throne that her father had promised to leave to her. The girl is Princess Armande of ancient Egypt, who used to be the only heir to the throne. But Armande's stepmother gave birth to a prince. Armande understood that the birth of the child would take away her throne. She decides to rely on her own strength to regain everything. Armande and Seth made a deal. After succeeding, she had to use her dagger to find another soul to offer to him. But in the last step of the plan, a mercury-containing arrow was injected into Armande's body. Armande was caught and turned into a mummy while still alive. Armande's body was buried in Egypt. 5,000 years later, during a battle in a small town in Iraq, the U.S. Army discovered the tomb of Armande. The main character Nick and his teammate Chris were tasked with exploring the tomb to search for artifacts of Egyptian civilization. They entered one of the rooms in the tomb and were greeted by a pool of mercury and many guardian statues. Archaeologist Jenny realized that they had stumbled upon a prison instead of a tomb. Suddenly, a sandstorm hit and they had to retreat quickly. However, Nick was curious about what was hidden beneath, and after observing, he shot a chain next to a coffin. The coffin slowly emerged from the mercury and strange events started happening. First, spiders crawled out from below and Chris accidentally shot one, causing him to panic and shoot randomly. Nick looked at the coffin and suddenly fell into an illusion from 1,000 years ago. An ancient Egyptian girl spoke to him, "Your choice." Luckily, Jenny woke him from the illusion and Nick regained his composure. The military helicopter arrived and took the coffin out of the tomb, with many black birds flying behind. To avoid the approaching sandstorm, they quickly put the coffin on the plane. Before the sandstorm engulfed everything, the plane successfully took off. But many strange events happened in succession. This mission was no longer simple like that. While everyone was resting, Chris was bitten by a spider in the tomb. At this time, strange symptoms appeared. When no one was paying attention, he suddenly appeared next to the coffin. He used a knife to stab something. The soldier standing next to him asked what Chris was doing, but he didn't say anything and stabbed him. Then Chris slowly walked towards the crowd. Nick grabbed the gun from the soldier and wanted to stop both of them. But Chris was like possessed and only kept waving his knife. Then Nick had to shoot. It's uncertain if he's dead or alive. Suddenly the plane shook violently. Turns out the engine had malfunctioned. He immediately ran to the cockpit to check the situation. Under the description of the captain, the plane was accidentally attacked in the air. At this moment, a vulture hit the windshield, followed by tens of thousands of vultures flying towards them. The plane lost control and crashed down below. Seeing that they were about to crash, Nick put the last parachute on Jenny and pulled the latch for her to escape. Unfortunately, Nick was stuck in the plane's compartment. At this moment, Jenny is at the hospital. She is sitting outside the morgue to confirm the body. Suddenly, the body of Mitch rises up in the morgue. It is clear that he is dead, no injuries apparent on his body. Before understanding what happened, a doctor suddenly leads Jenny into the morgue. It turns out that the staff here are searching for a plane that crashed. This unlucky man turns over a wooden board and finds an Egyptian sarcophagus inside. As he prepares to call his colleagues, they hear a running noise and rush over. After finding his friend, he has turned into a pile of bones. Then, he is scared by a flock of crows, and before he has time to recover, a shadow pounces on him. A few seconds later, the man was drained of all vitality and turned into a dried corpse. After Nick left the morgue, he went to the site near the plane crash. However, when passing by a church on the way, he seemed to sense something. Nick hurriedly led Jenny towards the church. Jenny found the plane, so she left first. Nick did not know the danger that was approaching. After entering the church, a shadow suddenly rushed towards him. Then Nick was found with a bunch of dried corpses placed on a stone table. Right at that moment, Armande was sealed for 1,000 years suddenly jumps onto his body. It turns out that Nick is the one she chose. Armande is ready to complete the unfinished ritual 5 years ago, and revive the spirit of Seth through Nick's body. But when she pulls out the knife of the god Seth, ready to stab Nick's chest, suddenly she realizes that the pink gem above has disappeared. At this moment, Jenny suddenly returned, staring in horror at the demonic scene. Then she hastily ran away. But Armand's target shifted to her. To save Jenny, Nick defeated all the mummies and stabbed Armand in the back with a knife. Jenny cooperated with Nick, and the two hurriedly ran out of the door. When they got in the car, they thought they could finally escape safely. Suddenly, a mummy smashed the car window, and the car lost control and rolled down the cliff. Armand now slowly walked towards them. As she prepared to extract Jenny's life force, an arrow suddenly pierced her body. A troop armed with advanced weapons appeared. As they controlled the ancient Egyptian mummy, a man slowly approached Nick and shot him. To prevent her from releasing the immense power of the giant death god in her body, humans fitted her with many devices and constantly injected mercury into her body. But humans were still too naive. Suddenly, a small spider crawled up somewhere and into the ear of the guard. Seeing the man's eyes suddenly turn white. A few seconds later, his colleague discovered that the mercury injector was closed. This man then pulled out an axe, slowly walking towards Armand. When he swung the axe down, the whole room quickly exploded. Armand continuously vomited up the mercury that had been injected into her body. Then she broke free from the chains. It was too late for the guards to stop her when she jumped down and quickly sucked the life force of the man. Finally, Armand had enough life force to summon her power, and everything in the room quickly shattered. At this point, Armand was searching for the man that she had chosen. Nick was following along and Jenny kept running forward without stopping. Armand destroyed the entire city in an instant. Under Armand's control, a massive sandstorm came. They finally took refuge in an abandoned tunnel. When they thought it was safe, Armand's army appeared. Nick and Jenny were thrown against a wall. They both fell into a pool of water. When Nick woke up, he saw that Jenny had become a lifeless body. Armand slowly approached Nick. After dispersing his dry killers, Armand began to perform the final death god ritual. Nick wanted to resist, but he was no match for Armand. He was quickly defeated. Ultimately, as Armand was about to throw Nick, he noticed that Seth's knife was in Nick's hand. Nick stood up and prepared to break the ruby. However, he hesitated on his second strike. After seeing Jenny beside him, he suddenly plunged the knife into his own body to complete the final ritual. The ruby slowly lost its color. When Nick opened his eyes, his pupils changed from 2 to 4 like Armand's. Nick stood up, grabbed Armand, and pressed her against the wall. Nick now had the power of Seth, and there was no one who could oppose him. He held Armand tightly and drained her life force. The Egyptian mummy finally became dry bones in his hands. Nick hurriedly ran to Jenny's lifeless body. Nick had now gained the power of life and death. He used his power to revive Jenny, but he disappeared without a trace. From that moment on, there was no news of Nick in the world. In the desert of Egypt, a romantic man appeared looking for a way to break his curse. The film ends here. If you liked it, please leave a comment.